Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of FPV For Beginners. This is episode 14, and in this episode I'm going to teach you how to fly the DJI AVATA 2 like a real FPV drone in manual mode. Now the bonus of this video is that the techniques I teach you also apply to, well, the AVATA 1. If you have the AVATA 1, you're going to learn how to fly it in manual mode. If you have the DJI FPV Potato, well, you're going to learn how to fly that in manual mode. And once you learn how to fly any of these DJI hybrid FPV drones in manual mode, then you can fly in acro mode. What is acro mode? Well, acro mode is pretty much the same as manual mode, except DJI calls this manual mode because they leave the sensors running. Whereas on a true FPV drone, there are no sensors running, so you're flying by the seat of your pants, and we call that acro mode. And that's the great thing about the FPV hobby, is because once you master flying DJI hybrid FPV drones in manual mode, then you switch over to FPV drones in acro mode, you can then fly every FPV drone on the market, from the little micro guys all the way up to the bigger guys. Now, before I start this really awesome tutorial that I guarantee will get you flying in manual mode, let me give you a bit of a reality check. Do you have a friend that you've known or you know now who plays guitar, and they play guitar really well, and they can play all the tunes on the radio and they sound really good? And did you look at them and say, that is awesome, I've got to get myself a guitar? And then you got yourself a guitar and you tried to play something on the guitar that sounded like crap, and then you just gave up and put it in your closet? Well, that's how it is when you have to learn how to fly manual mode. You won't be flying day one really awesome. It's going to take you like a month to 6 months to get good at flying in manual mode, and then things will be awesome. All right, let's put everything into perspective really quick between, DJI stabilized mode. That's in most drones on the market today, and they're all designed for beginners. The reason they're designed for beginners is because you can go buy this at Best Buy, take it out of the box, charge up the batteries, and fly it the same day. Your grandma can fly any DJI GPS drone on the market because the drone does all the work for you. And as I always say, the skill is not in flying one of these drones, but the skill is knowing how to use the camera and film something that people want to watch as you're flying the drone, which takes a bit of skill. Now, when it comes to an FPV drone, it usually just comes in a box with next to nothing, just a few spare parts. Sometimes they're not even fully assembled. Sometimes there's no receiver in them. You have to put your own receiver. So you have to know a lot on technology with FPV drones. Then you have to configure them in software to get them working. Then you have to have your radio and make sure your radio is compatible with them. Then you have to go buy the batteries because the batteries don't come with them. So you have to know how to charge batteries on a professional hobby charger. It's very, very, very difficult in the FPV hobby, but it's the most rewarding hobby of all the drone hobbies. Let's jump back to the DJI GPS camera drones. So you've probably noticed on a GPS camera drone, you get pretty much a basic remote like this. It's not programmable or anything. And the joysticks are in the center. Why are they in the center, you wonder? That's because on your camera drone, when those joysticks are in the center, the drone is programmed to hover in mid-air. It will just hover in air and wait for your command to move it forward, backwards, sides, up, or down. If you move this left joystick up, what happens? The drone rises, but it stays perfectly still in hover and goes up. Push that joystick down, the drone descends, and it stays perfectly still and descends. Push that joystick to the right or the left, your drone will hover in place and rotate right or left. It's pretty awesome. So that's what makes it so easy to fly these. Now we hop over to the right joystick. If you move that right joystick forward, guess what happens? Your drone tilts, and all of a sudden it's flying forward at exactly the same height. That is pretty cool. And if you take that right joystick and pull it backwards, well, your drone tilts backwards and it flies backwards at exactly the same height in a straight line. And if you move that joystick to the right or the left, your drone will roll. So here's a roll, roll, roll. If you roll to the right, you're just going to move to the right. If you roll to the left, you're just going to move to the left. But you know what's pretty awesome on these drones, all camera GPS drones? They have a 3-axis gimbal up front, this camera here. So when you're rolling or moving forward or backwards, the camera compensates and always stays level with the horizon. So the camera never shows you the rolls. It never shows you the bending, moving forward on the different angles or anything like that. It's always looking to the front. So let me show you what happens in the FPV hobby doing the same thing. Let me bring back our controller from the GPS hobby. All right, so we've established on a GPS camera drone that if you move the joystick up, the drone goes up. If you move it down, the drone goes down. And if you leave it in the center, it hovers. So what does that tell you? That tells you that the point in the center is considered 0, the point at the top is considered plus 100, and the point at the bottom is considered minus 100. Let's go over to our FPV drone now. So, hey, why is my joystick at the bottom? That's because the point at the bottom is considered 0, and there is no minus. As you bring it up, we're going up to plus 100 and all the way back to 0. So if I'm flying in manual mode and I lift this joystick to the center, well, then I'm doing 50% throttle power, and my drone is going in whatever direction it happens to be in. We've also established that on a GPS camera drone, if you take this joystick and move it over to the left or the right, it doesn't matter which way you turn it, well, then your drone is just going to sit in the air and it's going to just rotate 360 side to side, but hover perfectly still. If you try that on an FPV drone, it's not going to do that whatsoever. That's because rarely is an FPV drone ever level. And it doesn't want to stay level because it's up to you to keep it level. So when you move that joystick, if it's tilted a little bit like this, well, it's going to rotate, but it's going to rotate like this. You see how weird that is? And it's going to be all over the place. Let's go to the joystick on a GPS camera drone. So if I move it forward, I know that my drone will tilt and go forward. And if I move it backwards, tilt and go backwards. And if I move it to the side, it will roll to the side and go to the side, or roll to the other side and go that way. So what happens in the FPV world with an FPV drone in acro mode or manual mode, if you pull that forward, backwards, or side to side, there are 0 restrictions on your roll rate, on your roll distance, everything. Or your roll angle. So what does that mean? That means when you're flying your DJI AVATA 2 and you pull that in manual mode to the right, well, you just don't go like this and over, or pull it to the front. You don't go like this and forward, or this and backwards. You go like this and you go like this because there's no restrictions. You see, in the GPS camera world, let me grab this drone again. DJI, to make this perfect for beginners, has put in restrictions. There's a stability in here. It will not allow you to tilt the drone more than this, or this, this, or this. So when you're flying in normal mode, it might tilt this much. When you fly in sport mode, it might tilt this much. But that's it. It won't go any further because the camera, when you're tilted, has to look up to see straight when you're flying. And there's an inability of the camera to keep looking up because it's just going to see the front of the drone. So you'll never be able to fly it like an FPV drone like this. A GPS camera drone that you probably learned how to fly on because it takes no skill, well, it is designed to stay in the air. It is designed to stay in the air because it has a barometer in it. It's got sensors on the bottom to look at the ground. It has GPS and a compass in it. It will just stay pink, perfectly still in the air. Doesn't even matter if it's a windy day. Which brings us to the FPV hobby and an FPV drone. Well, the FPV drone has 0 sensors in it. It has no idea what the heck is going on when you're flying it. It will gladly crash into the ground. It has no avoidance on it, nothing. And not only that, if it's windy out, well, the wind does affect it. It has nothing to keep it still. So you're fighting the wind when you're flying. You're fighting many things when you're flying, especially gravity, because all this thing wants to do is crash into the ground. You've got to keep it in the air. All right, so now we get on to the portion of the video where I'm going to teach you how to fly. So what I'm going to use is the DJI Virtual Flight Simulator, and we'll go into that right now, and then I'll be flying the DJI AVATA around. All right, if you're not aware, you can download the DJI Virtual Flight Simulator. It's been out since the release of the DJI FPV drone, and it's been around for a long time, but DJI has given up on it, and they're not updating it anymore. So it does not work with the DJI AVATA 2. So therefore, for this little portion, I'm going to use the goggles 2, which are the ones that came out with the DJI AVATA 1. And I'm going to use the remote controller 2, which is the remote that came out way back when the DJI FPV drone was released. Here we go. Now I can fly looking right at my phone, or I could put the goggles on. For me, I'm going to put the goggles on because it brings everything closer to my eyeballs. It looks pretty cool. You know, I got to say too, putting these goggles on, these are the DJI goggles 2. They are not as good as the new DJI Goggles 3. They don't fit as well for my eyeballs. All right, to start this off, we're going to start off in normal mode. You see I could switch it. I can go normal, sport, or all of a sudden manual. Hey, why does it look up at the sky, you wonder? Well, let me just explain that quick. So when you're in manual mode on an FPV drone, the speed that you want to travel is based on the angle of the camera up front. This is called the pilot's camera. That's what you see through and see inside your goggles. If you place this camera on an up angle, usually at 45 degrees, that's quite common in the FPV hobby, that means this camera is looking like this. So in order for this camera to see straight, I gotta tilt the drone like that. How fast do you think I'm gonna go when I tilt it like that? I'm gonna go ridiculously fast. So if I want to go slower, you take that camera up front and you bring it down and you make it look perfectly forward. And if that camera is looking forward and I want to fly forward, it's up to me to tilt the drone to move forward, obviously. So when I tilt it in manual mode, well, I can't tilt it very much because I'm going to be staring at the ground. Your brain will automatically pull the drone to a position that allows you to see sort of just a little bit of the horizon when you're flying. And for that reason, you're not going to fly very fast. So beginners, always take your camera on any FPV drone and put it perfectly forward and you will fly very slow. If you look at my left joystick on the screen, you see I can move it up and down. Since I've dropped my joystick all the way down, I can still fly in normal mode, but I could put it in the center if I want. So let me do this. It's in normal mode, pull the joysticks in. When I lift that joystick to center or higher, I should take off. There we go. So now you can see my joysticks on the screen, these little dots. I'm moving this one up and down, the left one. So look what happens. I have both joysticks centered. I'm not moving anywhere. I'm hovering. That is the awesome thing with a GPS camera drone. And if I was in sport mode, it would be the same thing. So as we've discussed already, I'm just going to go over it one more time. If I move that left joystick up, what happens? I go up. If I move that left joystick down, what happens? I go down. If I move that left joystick to the left, I should rotate 360 degrees all the way around and just keep on turning. And if I do it to the right, exactly the same thing. And the drone will stay perfectly stable in the air and hover in that position. If I move the right joystick forward, I will tilt the nose, but the camera won't show me the tilt, and we move forward. Here, let's just turn over to the side here and look at something so we can see ourselves moving forward. There we are. We're moving forward. The more I lift it, the faster I go forward. And if we go backwards, the same thing. And remember that roll I was talking about? We can roll to the right. I can see the roll now, which is interesting. I don't know why it's showing me that. It should be horizon. But anyways, I can't flip over. I can't flip. I can't do anything. No, it just does that and that. Nothing exciting. All right. So let's go land. Okay, let's go to manual mode. It's going to show me double tap and then take off. There we go. So you'll fly way faster than sport mode or any mode that you have on any drone. Let's come back and land and let me explain everything. Okay, now the training begins to fly in manual mode. The first thing you're going to do is have your drone on the ground like this. You're going to want to fly. You're going to be pooping your pants because you don't know what's going to happen. Make sure in front of you it's a wide open field. So what you're going to do is see this left joystick? When you lift it, do not, that thinks I want to go, hang on. When you lift that left joystick, can I keep the display on the screen? I guess I can't. When you lift it, do not lift it to the top. You will just drive the drone into the ground, the throttle here. So just lift it until you're about, maybe 30% throttle, 40% throttle. And what's going to happen is your drone is going to rise and it's going to want to go forward a little bit. And what you're going to do to help it go forward a little bit is on your right joystick, you are going to move that forward. Just a few microns. Move it forward a few microns. Watch what happens. Okay, so here we go. Ready to go. Double tap and lifting and forward. There we go. So now that's what's happening. I'm flying. So what's happening is the drone wants to fall back to the ground. It just wants to fall on the ground, but I'm keeping it going forward at a certain speed that keeps it in the air. So if you look at the right joystick, I have it just slightly moved forward. If I want to rise as I'm going forward, give it more throttle and we will rise. So that's the left joystick to make us rise. But you see my right joystick, I haven't touched it much. I'm just keeping this angle because that's okay. That's another thing when you're flying in manual mode for beginners. You're looking at the ground like I am right now. And that's a little daunting because people go crazy and they want to look like this. So I just pulled the right joystick back. But the problem is as soon as I do that, remember our camera's already looking up? Well, I'm just going up in the air now. Now I'm flying way up in the air and I'm going to get higher and higher. So we don't want that. So you always want to be, when you're flying in manual mode, you always want to be, as a beginner, looking at the ground slightly. And then just moving forward. Let me explain something really simple here. Have you ever seen a 1-year-old, a toddler, learning how to walk? You know what they do? They walk around the house hanging on to furniture. So they're holding on to this, holding on to that, one arm out, another arm out, and they're moving around, but they're standing on their legs. That's kind of what it's like to fly a DJI drone with GPS and stability, because the stability is the chairs and everything else around your house. When they learn how to walk, what do? Well, they have these massive heads on their body, and all of a sudden they let go of the furniture, and their head, if they lean forward a little bit, they fall forward. And their little legs start to move really quick to hold their head up as they're moving forward. So it's basically just inertia happening. They're just running across the floor like that. That's exactly how it is to fly an FPV drone. The drone wants to fall out of the sky. It's tilted like this. It wants to go into the ground. It's up to you to give it sufficient throttle at the angle you set. So if you set it this way when you're flying so that you can see what you want to see, that you use that left joystick to give it throttle to get it going forward. Because if you don't give it enough throttle, it falls. And if I take the right joystick and I move it forward, like on a normal drone, you'll go forward, right? But you see how if I keep holding it forward, I'm going in the ground, so I have to take the left throttle and give it speed so I don't hit the ground. There you go. Now we're flying. So that is the difficult part with flying in manual mode. And the other thing too is if you don't give it enough throttle and say you move that right joystick too far, whoa, what's happening? There's no restrictions on the angle, so you can just spin. And that's how in the FPV hobby we all do our rolls. Look at to the right. I'm just rolling to the right. Look at to the left. Rolling to the left. It's that simple to do anything in manual mode in the FPV hobby. And all you have to do is learn how to combine all those little movements to make something look spectacular while you're flying FPV. And here is another pointer I'm going to give you. I'm just going to fly this way, and let me tell you about turning. So when you flew your DJI Mavic and you wanted to turn to the right or the left, you'd be flying straight and you would move the left joystick. It works here, but look what's happening. Everything's tilted. Oh my God. Oh my God, this is not good. This is not good. We are going to hit the ground, so we don't want that. So the way it works is this. When you fly in manual mode, I'll just come down here. Doesn't matter where your joysticks are. Say I want to turn to the left. You move both joysticks. Yes, it sounds ridiculous, but you do. Watch. There you go. If you move both joysticks, it keeps it at the same level and the same orientation. And you just move them a little bit. So that's how we turn in the hobby. And if you find you're a little bit off, you just move one joystick, usually the right joystick more than the left joystick, and that will get you back to a level type flying experience. Does that make sense? That's all it is. As soon as you master that, life is good. So once you get the hang of manual mode, you can then fly through anything you want. It doesn't matter. You could fly through stuff. You could do all sorts of little spins and flips. Let me go this way, go over here, go through this. Come on over here. Is there anything to go through over here? Come low. You know, it's a lot of fun in sims and other things when you're flying around and doing stuff. You can explore the world and check out as many things as you want. It doesn't matter. And if you want to do flips while you're doing it, flip and then come back. And the great thing, if you're flying on an AVATA and it comes time that you want to land, you just take the switch, plunk, you plunk it into normal mode and you come down and land. Don't bother trying to land in manual or acro mode because the odds are, as a beginner, you're going to crash your AVATA. You won't damage it, but you could crash it. So anyways, I don't know. I somehow landed on something, but there we go. We're coming down to the ground. There we are. Now what I want to do is show you the best way to practice the skills you learn in flying in manual mode. Trust me when I say, if you do this, you're going to fly in manual mode really quick. So what you have to do is find an open field that has a path on it, a path that you can see when you fly over so you can follow the path. It can be a walking path, it could be a running path. So if you're at like a track and field area, that track and field area that has the path, the running track around the field, that's awesome to learn on. That's how I taught myself how to fly FPV. So you can see there's a track in front of me and we're going to follow this around. We're just going to follow the track. So let me go into manual mode. There we go. Tap that. And I'm going to start and then come up. What I want to do is fly around this track. It doesn't matter that there's gates here, but the skills to fly around, your brain will cause your body to allow you to fly around a track. If you're outdoors, you can fly around a track. The skill is that you're going to keep the drone at about the same level off the ground in manual mode, flying around the track. And the turning, I'm using both joysticks to turn here slightly, very little movements. When you fly FPV in manual or acro, the movements on the joysticks are micro movements. You barely move the joysticks. But by doing this, this is how you learn how to fly in manual mode. I did this on my running track that's in my area, and I flew around this once a day for a little while, and I got really good at it. I could go faster and slower, and yeah, I could change directions. Like I could go through and go, okay, can I turn around? I don't want to go finish because it's going to end my session here. And turn around and then do the track again. It's that simple. And the idea is just to keep your drone about the same level off the ground. See, I went a little wonky there. But yeah, you can do the same thing. You are going to go wonky as well as I just did there, but it's going to be the same thing. You just want to get nice, smooth turns by moving both joysticks at the same time. Is that super easy or is that super easy? It's very easy to practice on. And then when you get really good, you can go, hey, whoa, and I'm still going on the track down to the finish line. There we go. All right, and we're going to go into normal mode and land. All right, so it goes without saying that if you want to fly in manual mode with the DJI AVATA 2, you will have to buy yourself the Remote 3. It's about $200 US. After you buy it, in order to fly in manual mode, you have to drop the left joystick. Where is it? Right here. It's very easy to do. You pull this rubber on the back off, and once you pull it off, you'll see 2 holes, and you stick an Allen key that usually comes with this when you buy it, put it in there, spin it one way. If nothing happens to the joystick, it's still staying in the center, spin it the other way. You should have to spin it quite a few times. It's not like one spin, it's quite a few times. Spin both. One is going to loosen it, and the other one is going to make it tight so that it stays wherever you put it when you have it loose. In the FPV hobby, every single FPV pilot likes their left joystick at a different resistance. Some people like it really tight. Some people like it so it's so loose the wind can knock it all over the place. I'm the type of guy that I like it with a little bit of resistance that when I let go of it, it stays where it is. The reason I do that is because sometimes when I'm flying, I got to scratch my nose. And if you take your fingers off the joystick and it falls, when you scratch your nose while your drone's going down. After you do that, you're going to have to change the menu system in the goggles for your remote. So you power on the remote, power on your AVATA 2, power on your goggles. When everything's all connected, you're going to go into the goggles and you're going to go down to the settings. Then you're going to go over where it says the controller and you want the remote controller. And then in that, you have to change this button here that we flick so that when it's in the M mode, it's no longer back in sport mode. It's now in manual mode. Next thing, and this is up to you how far you want to go. If you want the drone to fly like a real FPV drone and do flips and rolls and all that stuff, you have to change a setting in the gains. It's just one little slider. All you do is turn that off so it's not green, and all of a sudden it will let you flip and roll. You can leave that on and still fly in manual mode and it won't let you flip and roll, and it's kind of like flying in an angle mode. So in the FPV hobby, we have something called angle mode, and that is for beginners learning how to fly. And what it does is it stops this angle from not being too excessive. So in other words, you can't flip your FPV drone. If you're moving the joysticks too much, it will only go, it stops, it stops, it stops, it stops. I find it very hard to fly in that mode. All right, this video should have given you enough skills to get out there and fly in manual mode and probably not crash as much or give up as much as you would have without any skills. So this video should have given you enough confidence to get out there and fly, knowing what you know now. And I guarantee as soon as you learn how to fly in manual mode well, you are going to want to fly an FPV drone like this, and you're going to want to use your DJI goggles and your DJI remote. And I have a video on that. Go check out FPV For Beginners episode 12. It teaches you how to take your existing gear and connect it all to the modern drones on the planet. All right, guys, thanks for watching this video. If you have questions, post them below. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up, and I will catch you in a future video with many more cool product reviews. Until then, I say bye.